I mean, speaking of local tyranny in the name of fighting non-local issues, Illinois has basically come up with their own version of the Green New Deal, only this is sketched out in detail and has a shot of becoming law. So on February 28th, the Illinois Environmental Council announced its Clean Energy Jobs Act legislation. And it's very complex. It's 365 pages, but the most notable aspects of it are that it's calling for Illinois becoming 100% carbon free in its energy by 2030 and 100% renewable by 2050. And the distinction there is that carbon free means you can't get electricity from fossil fuels, but you can get it from nuclear. And indeed, Illinois is the leading, they generate more of their electricity from nuclear, more than 50% of it than any other state in the United States. And then once they're supposed to get to 100% renewable, that means excluding nuclear. And if you read the bill, it also excludes any new large-scale hydro. So it's basically biofuels and wind and solar, mainly wind and solar. And I mean, just to get some of the scale of what it's calling for, over the next decade, you'd get 40 million solar panels and 2,500 wind turbines, along with $20 billion in new infrastructure. And that's just the next decade. But the major thing that I found striking, both in what I've read of the high end, I haven't read all 365 pages of the bill, but in every summary I've read, in every news article, there's no discussion or no attempt to contend with the intermittency problem. Like it'll mention as like a side, within a series of commas that there'll be some storage. But I mean, if you're talking about eliminating all of your reliable fuel sources, then it would be a real question of if this is supposed to be even possible, let alone economically feasible. How are you going to deal with intermittency? And there's just nothing that addresses that, which to me suggests that like this is a bill that's not even coming close to thinking about what would make Illinois a better place to live.
One of the kind of things we should be scared about in a society is any kind of mania where just people's thinking is just in one direction and that's all they can focus on, and they ignore very obvious things. And with the renewable energy mania right now, it's in a sense derivative of climate mania, but it's really specifically focused on how do we get to this specific form of energy, renewable energy. This mania is just ignoring totally vital things, including, as you're talking about, the stability of the grid and the fact that nobody is talking about the blatant, obvious problem with these technologies, that they are unreliable, that people aren't taking this seriously. This is just, nobody has come close to solving this problem. None of the storage math makes any sense. Also, I mean, all of it is even as expensive and unreliable as it is, it's all coming from fossil fuels anyway. There's a ton of other stuff you could say, but just fundamentally that people are obsessed with forcing us to use this thing that doesn't work is really scary. And it's particularly scary that they're not even thinking about it. They're so dogmatic. And one thing that needs to happen practically is just that the renewables, so-called solar and wind, really need to be properly demonized as unreliables. I think of that as, in a sense, even the highest priority right now. And that's one reason why I'm grateful to people like Michael Schellenberger, who are making the point about nuclear versus the unreliables. And Schellenberger at this point, I believe, is opposing the use of unreliables, which is basically the right tack to take given their current state. This is because something needs to be done to undo this mania. And as we've talked about, major corporations have promoted this 100% renewable. So just getting rid of this idea that renewable is any kind of salvation. And I think one actual interesting area of attack is to do some research about the actual CO2 profile of these. Because my sense from the research that I've done is that nobody is measuring this remotely properly in terms of what are the actual emissions of using solar and wind for any significant portion of energy. I've talked about on previous shows how when you're using them, you're using the baseline energy infrastructure anyway, and then you're using your fuel less efficiently because it has to cycle up and down rapidly to accommodate for the erratic behavior of solar and wind. So someone needs, and I guess that's going to be us, so we'll talk about this soon, but somebody needs to do any kind of CO2 accounting, because that's one way in which this mania can be busted. But it is truly a terrifying mania that we're so obsessed with renewable energy. If it were, we're going to build like rapid build of nuclear plants, that would be the wrong thing in a bunch of ways, or it could be the wrong thing, but it would not be as scary as people just advocating mindlessly for this technology that does not work to meet the fundamental need of providing us reliable electricity or reliable energy more broadly.
And just quickly, like, contrast that. You mentioned this idea of natural gas pipelines exploding. I saw an article in Rolling Stone that just, harped on this. And here you have a situation where you have something that's a proven, incredibly valuable source of reliable energy that has a side effect, and that, yes, we should be taking very seriously the risks. And there are people thinking about them, and you have journalists writing about them in mainstream publications. And if you took that same approach with, all right, here's an energy source that like doesn't work, and we're not going to take seriously this fundamental problem, not even just like a side effect of what can go wrong, but a fundamental flaw in it. This is an ultimate illustration of just the biased way that we're thinking about things.
Yeah, just even think of because in that story in Rolling Stone, I saw a little bit of. I mean, they show a house that's just totally burned, and it's a scary sight. But you just think about what happens if the grid goes down, or if you lack fuel for transportation. Just even in terms of fires, what happens when you're trying to burn wood in your home? I mean, if you can even get wood, and then what happens when there is a fire and you don't have a fire department that's operating? There's just, the ecosystem is so delicate. It's not delicate. It's resilient if you're allowed to act. But if you're not allowed to act to maintain it, then it just is incredibly, incredibly delicate.